Hey everybody, so here is my review of Xenotype. Full disclosure up front, I actually like Liam Gray. I think he's a good person, in spite of the fact he might get a little crazy at times, but don't we all? And I wanted to like the book, so it was going to be difficult. If it was bad, it was going to be difficult. But just like the situation with your boy Zach, Richard C. Meyer, I wanted to like his books, and I don't. They're not well written, so I have said as much. So I will be fair. Luckily, it's not bad. It is not a bad book, but I just wanted to get that up front that I actually do like Liam Gray a lot. I think he's a good guy, and so this is going to be a fair, very fair. I think he would acknowledge this is going to be a very fair review. But please, Liam, don't strike me, bro. So anyways, Xenotype is... it's long. It really is long. It came in the mail. Unfortunately, it was not packaged correctly, and that is on Liam. At the very least, it should have been either it had been wrapped in something, or the book should have been taped to the inside of the mailer so that it couldn't move around in some way. But it wasn't, and so it moved around a lot, and the edges were pretty dinged up. They got pretty bad. All the corners kind of look like this, and the one book, the silver edition, has water damage. So the shipping was a bit of a problem with it, but that is what it is, I guess. I'm not the type that's going to collect things, so it's not that big of a deal to me for like collector's purposes, but it does suck that it's an expensive book that wasn't packaged correctly. But so Xenotype came in both the gold and silver edition. When you bought them together, it was called the platinum, I guess. And I did, in fact, get that. And so, in American dollars, it cost $183 total, if you include the, like, $40 shipping on it. So it was a very expensive book, like close to $80, I think, for the gold, and $83 for the gold, and $50 for the silver edition. I will start out and say that the art spectacular. I want to make the point that I am not some sort of manga master. Like I hear people say, "Oh, I watch this and I watch that," and I had all these different. They can just name all these. I'll be honest with you. I remember back when Akira, the series, came over here to the States on like the Sci-Fi Channel back in the 90s, and so I read the book of Akira. I think I ended up reading, what was it? It was it's like Rurouni Kenshin or something like that. Like, it's either like, I think that's what it is. I am terrible with the names in Japanese. I know I ended up reading at one point that Uzumaki and Tokyo Ghoul. I actually think one of the first I ever read, even before Akira came in, because back then you had to kind of like, these weren't readily available. I think I got Fist of the North Star. I think that was the first manga I had ever read of any type, and then Akira was second. So, and then I kind of dozed out from it from about 2001, 2002, and I didn't read another manga until 2016. And so I'm not some sort of expert, but I enjoy manga a lot, and I have to say that the quality of this is far above most of your shonen manga. The rendering, the detail, it reminds me of most of the seinen manga that I've checked out. So it's not nearly as, for children. It is kind of one of those things. I probably would say it's 10 or 11 years old or older, just because some of the stuff that it deals with is a little bit older, but it's not too mature. But there is the issue of it being printed backwards, which I'm so frustrated, because I really did not want. I wanted this to be perfect. I really did. I was hoping, for Liam's sake, for everyone's sake, that it would be perfect. And unfortunately, with it being printed backwards like that, it's not what it should have been. But the detail, the rendering, everything is amazing on this book. It truly is absolutely amazing. So the quality of it is really good. I have to honestly say, I don't like the thickness of the pages. The pages are too thick, and it's hard to get it to open up and lay flat without actually hurting the binding in the middle. You could see it start to pull apart because the pages are so thick. It was hard to get it to open all the way to be able to read it. That's another thing. So I kind of enjoy thinner pages on some of my comic books, especially manga, but it is what it is. I will tell you, some of the character designs are a little goofy to me. I really don't see, like, I'm sure that for somebody who's into manga, like, some of these character designs are probably, like, really cool to them. But to me, I don't even understand the main xenomorph look. Because, like, I don't necessarily find that, like, wow, you know, like, it kind of looks a little goofy. It looks a little goofy to me. I don't know how else to say it. It looks a little goofy to me. It just does. But there are times that when Odie draws it, it looks cool. I mean, you know, like this shot here in particular, it does look cool when he does that shot. So, you know, I'm not above saying it's cool. I'm not bashing it for that sake, but it is, I don't get some of them, some of the styles, some of the choices on it. And again, it's probably just going over my head because I'm not like deep and entrenched into it, but it is what it is. Like I said, the art can't be beat. And the second thing is that there is the gold edition, which is colored, which I do not know what they paid the Scotsman to color this manga, but whatever they paid him, it's not enough. It's not enough. I did not think it would work. Like, most of the time, the only color manga you find, they're actually, you know, they're rendered to be colored. But this manga was not, and most manga are not drawn to be colored. And I didn't think it was going to turn out. I know I'd seen Scotsman drawing it on his you know, on live streams and stuff, and you know, parts of it looked pretty good. I didn't think it was going to print well. I was not sold on the color edition, but the colors are spectacular for what they did. He pulled it out in a way that I was not expecting. I was not expecting at all. And they really are nice. However, this is where I feel bad about the silver, about the black and white edition, because there are times that you start to lose some of the original feeling of the manga because of the colors. Now, again, the colors are beautiful. And even in this case, it really, really shines. Like, in this case, like on this particular page, it works for what's going on. It does actually, even because like with the red background, you can see anger or frustration. But on almost every page, this comic has a sense of foreboding dread, like hanging over it. It's dreary, it's drab, it has a foreboding. When you're reading it in the manga version, the black and white version, it has a drab heaviness to it that unfortunately the color edition does not have. It loses that sense of darkness. And I'm going to show the difference here because you can see, whereas it looks kind of drab, but look at how light it is on this compared to the black and white edition. The black and white is gloomy and completely it feels hopeless to a certain extent. And the color edition, while the coloring is gorgeous, you lose some of that dark, foreboding gloominess. It lightens up too much. And so there are parts where it changes the feeling. Now, maybe that's okay as far as, I think the story still tells well, but it is something to remember that the feeling of the comic does change. It really does change with the color versus the non-color. And again, side by side, you can see the difference between the two. Whereas, yes, it looks overcast and rainy and such with the color version. It looks downright gloomy and depressing in the black and white version. So, again, that's one of those issues where the manga version honestly, if the black and white had been printed correctly from right to left, 5-10 years from now, this might be like heralded as a masterpiece. Like this might be like Spawn 1. Especially with Odie's, if Odie continues to get better and develop, it could very easily be how people talk about Spider-Man 1, you know, with McFarlane or again Spawn or whatever, with so where it's like this is the beginning of something. And so had it been printed, this might be a serious collector's edition item in the future, because it has that sort of potential. Now, the only other issue I have on form factor, I think if this were printed at a manga size instead of a American comic book size, I think that would have been better. Because some of the pages, you can tell the way that Odie did them and put them together, they were sort of they would look better if they were smaller. Because there are details in the art that you sort of need the book to be smaller so you don't see. Because, I mean, I don't know if you're seeing this, but, you know, obviously all of us know what human anatomy looks like, and you have issues with that. And because this is a children's comic and not an adult title, obviously there are things you can't show, but you cover them with shadow and do various things. But the way it was done, it would look better in a smaller form factor, in a smaller size, so you can't see that detail is missing. Those are just things that would protect Odie's art just a little bit. But as far as the story goes, it is one of the best written comics in all of CG or indie comics currently, new indie comics or whatever you want to call it. I'll call it CG for now, because he was CG while it was being put together, at least. It's one of the best by far, writing-wise, because it has a beginning, it has an end, it has it has story development, it has character development, it has several different plot lines. It actually has like 6 subplots that are all sort of being created and pushed along and shown in various stages that are probably supposed to come about in other books that are just, it's really detailed and really intricate. There are levels to this thing that I could see that there's levels that won't be, if there were 6 editions of this, six 200-page volumes, it would take that long to be able for some of these storylines to start to squeak out. But I can see the makings of the storylines already, and it's really intricately written, and there are layers to it. The only thing I will say is that it's a funny thing with Liam, his writing, because he has this really well plotted and put together story with all of these subplots and all of these drawn out characters that are really good. And yet the names, some of them are American names, some of them are Spanish or Latin sounding, others are clearly Japanese, a few of them are just made up. Anybody who knows what Esper means will realize that the Esper is the Esper. His name is Esper, and some of it's a little bit too on the nose that way, and some of his allegory is a little too on the nose. But it is incredibly well written. It is at this point, and I'm not surprised, because Crossroads Strive is probably the best written thing I've read in comic book form in a long time, and so this is right up there. I would say so far of the 3 things that Liam and Odie released, 2 of them place 1 and 2 as far as best writing in indie comics in the last several years. And so it's a very good quality book. It feels long, unfortunately. That's the one thing about it, and I understand that it's technically 2 different fights, and there's 8 pages sprinkled through there that don't show the fight. But it's like they start fighting and they fight for 15, 20 pages. It does feel long. And that's not a positive. It's not like, oh, it's a nice, good, long story. It feels really long. They start fighting, and then there's a page of 2 people talking somewhere else. And then there's 25 more pages of people fighting. And then that fight ends, and some police show up, and they're going to shoot them. And then all of a sudden, there's 35 more pages of fighting followed by 2 pages of existential quandary, followed by a whole, 5 more pages of fighting, 1 page of talking, and 10 more pages of fighting. It's like 90 pages out of 100 pages. Out of like 100 pages straight, there's like 90 of them are fighting. And I understand that, I guess this is a shonen battle manga, so it's supposed to have fighting. It just seems like there is a lot of fighting in this thing, and I get it, but it feels long. The fights feel long. Occasionally, Liam gets very Shakespearean, and his dialogue almost starts to feel like being read in English lit class or something, and which is good, except that sometimes it's in the middle of a fight sequence, or it's in the middle of a demon spawn sequence or something, and there's just a lot of dialogue that I get. Mangas have a lot of dialogue, but it slows it down. Now, don't get me wrong, it still tells a really good story, but at 200 pages and somewhere between 88 and 90 of them being just battling, just 2 battles that just go and go and go. If you would have cut those down to 60 pages, you could have fit a little more story in, or you could have just had a slightly shorter manga, which would have been fine with the amount of story, which I actually, though, would have preferred just a little more story, because this is, in fact, just an introduction to a bigger story. Which might just be the fact that it needed to be released in 3 editions. Like, maybe they needed to have 3 60-page editions and then have a collected edition. That way, by the time you get to read it as a 200-page book, you actually see that you've already read through the whole thing before. You've already experienced it, so it's not brand new to you as you're getting it. I don't know what it takes to do it. I'm not gonna try and fix that part. I'm just saying. But that being said, as far as a story goes, it is one of the best written. Like I said, it's too bad about the manga version being printed wrong. I guess stuff happens. You have to learn from it. So, do I recommend the book? Yes. You can't even buy it right now because it's not in demand anymore. But I mean, it is a recommend as far as to read. At the price that I paid for it, is the gold edition worth $83 plus $30 shipping? No, it's not. It's a $50 book at best. Honestly, the silver should have been $30 and the gold should have been $50. And that's what the pricing probably should have been. It's too expensive. If you're really into really high quality written manga, sure, but it is pricey for what it is. If I were to give it like a grading, like an A through F, I would give the gold edition an A, and say that it's really good. The reason why it's not an A plus is because the few issues with the color, I think, changing the feeling, but it is an A. And the coloring is beautiful and well done. Well done by the Scotsman. The silver edition, the black and white, I gotta give it the way it's put together, it's the best I can give it is a C because of that. The art is an A, the presentation is an F. Give it a C in the middle. I feel bad for Odie that it's not printed right to left, because that is the way it was meant to be put together. But overall, for the whole thing, the best written book so far in indie comics. Presentation was a problem. Shipping was a problem. It was too pricey. Hopefully in the future the price comes down. Hopefully he issues a manga-sized version of it at some point that you can buy on eBay for $45 or $40 or whatever. That would be nice to be able to do. But so that is the review. I try not to spoil anything. I try not to be too, my personal opinion, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I do enjoy manga. I read a lot of manga. I think that this is a good manga. Now, there was an argument, is it actually manga? Because people say that only Japanese people can make manga. I would say if it was printed correctly, it's manga. I mean, it's The art, you would, if you presented this book to me, printed right to left, the way it's put together, and just said, "Here, read this," I would not know that it was not a Japanese person. I wouldn't be able to tell that it wasn't a Japanese person who wrote it. The only thing would be the dialogue. Would be like, well, the dialogue is so good in English that it sounds like it was written in English, but that's about it. That's about the only thing you get. It's really high quality, really good. Like I said, I gave it an A for the color edition. Hopefully we get an actual manga print, manga sized, manga standard edition at some point in the future for a good price that people can go ahead and buy and love and cherish. Like I said, I do recommend it. If you can get it for a better price on eBay or something, go ahead and get it. Well, if you stayed to this point, I thank you very much for listening, and you take care. God bless.